Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. This is my initial thoughts video for Conqueror Lilias or ML Lilias. Depends on where you get your information, depends on what you think about her. Definitely keep an open mind about her. If you are serious about like World Arena and what characters to invest in, like we're talking about like min-maxing your resources for the most effective characters that will help you push into PvP and stuff like that, I definitely think that you should, you know, have your ears open to the actual players in World Arena, like streamers and stuff like that. And I definitely think that she's gonna be good. So in terms of, you know, don't go to Reddit or some kind of forum posts and stuff like that and only see that, oh, she's bad because of this. Honestly, you can nitpick every single character apart if you start focusing only on the negatives and what they can be countered, right? So like even Rimuru, he can be one shot by Luna with an attack buff. Like, does that make him bad? No, it doesn't, of course. Like, so the logic there doesn't really work, right? I will be fair though, when I did see Conqueror Lilias, in terms of like watch the video, like before I could digest everything, like as they're showing slide to slide to slide, I definitely had questions about her, because I thought she was originally gonna be a damage dealer. Based on her stat line, it didn't look like it, but then she's a warrior, so I'm like, okay, she's a damage dealer, but then she's not, and then I was kind of confused as well. But honestly, if you look at her really closely, and not at the beautiful legs, but you look at her really closely in terms of her skill set, she's actually not a bad hero. And in fact, I definitely think that Smilegate designed her in a way that she's a quiet way to deal with current meta. When I say quiet, I mean like, not something like, oh, she does like infinite damage, or she does like a million bajillion damage and she can one shot, or anti, like, you know, she has full AoE extinction and stuff like that. It's not that way, but they are definitely dealing with things in a hush hush type of tone, and I think maybe perhaps what's alluding to some players is that aspect of it. She's definitely a more passive, she needs more internalizing, digesting before you start realizing that, wait, she's actually really good, but then she's not like OP in terms of, because she's not a damage dealer. Okay, so let's get into it. First things first, I wanted to talk about this expression. This is definitely really nice. I personally like the concept art. If you guys saw the concept art a couple months ago, again, the hype train video, you know, I talked about I missed the mark on a couple of those speculations, like Zahak being MLK Ron. Turns out it wasn't MLK Ron. I totally missed ML Celine. Did not know that was ML Celine that was previewed. But ML Lilias, I think, you know, 99.99999% of the community all knew that this was ML Lilias. I mean, she's got the similar leggings, she's got the same proportion of legs, she's got similar boob shape, she's got the same, like pretty much the same hair, like a bit different, but like the bangs and stuff are the same, and the eyes and stuff like that. So like we were convinced, and then of course this is ML Lilias. And then the kind of debate, like, oh, she has like about a 50-50 split in terms of dark clothing versus light clothing, so is she light or dark? And then, you know, I was talking with my guildmates about this. I was like, you know, do any of the dark heroes have blonde hair? So that was my question that I posed, and then we all like looked into the journal, we checked it out. Like, dark heroes have white hair, so like ML Haste and stuff, but not blonde hair. So far gold or blonde hair has so far been consistently light elemental characters, like A Tywin, ML Crow, all that stuff. I think there's more than that too, but anyways, long story short, ML Lilias looks pretty good. I kind of wish that she wasn't on a throne. I'm okay with her on a throne, but I feel like Bellion's case of her sitting makes more sense, right? Because like that's like part of her design, but like it doesn't. I don't know. I have a thing where when there's a prop in the scene, I'm not so hyped about it. Even though it's a throne, even though it's like a red velvet throne, it looks good, and she looks really good posed on it. I would wish that Smilegate would reveal more of their kind of concept art and stuff like that. Like maybe they had different ideas, but you know, I know a lot of people have been, you know, making jokes on like, oh, you know, let her sit on me or something like that. Whatever. That's not important. but in terms of aesthetically design, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Sure, her sprite looks great, her S3 animation looks great, but so let's talk about the stats, right? So she's a light elemental warrior. Again, that thing definitely confused me at first. I was like, okay, warrior, you start thinking about damage dealer, but then you start really thinking about it. Like Holiday Euphine, she is a damage dealer, but when she was like released, she had issues offering consistent high damage unless you have like insane gear, because what she needed to do was be a cleanser as well. So she needed to be bulky, not die. She needed to also be high speed so she can cleanse for the team, and she also needed some DPS. And if you didn't go with the DPS route, then she felt like she didn't really do much. She really fed SSBs, S3 and stuff like that, and ML crowd cooldown. So like there are warriors definitely with that supportive aspect. So when Conqueror Lilias was fully released, I reread everything. I was like kind of confused, but then look at the stat line and look at what she has to offer. I think the thing that about warriors is that they had to make her a warrior, because if they went with this stat line and they gave it to a knight or a mage, I think she would be actually broken. So in terms of just the full stat line, right? So I feel like the warrior part of it is not necessarily to deal with the fact like, you know, oh, she doesn't really play like a warrior. I think it's more the fact that they had to passively nerf her by giving her limited access to like OP artifacts that can benefit with her type of skill set. I think that's the reason, but of course that's going on a bit of speculation. Aquarius is a new star sign for warriors. I did a double check on 4 stars, 3 stars, and even current 5 stars, and I don't see any Aquarius. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below, but I do believe that this is the new one, and if it is new, I definitely think it is because I'm not familiar with the stat line. You look at it, the attack is insanely low, right? So 885 is like as the lowest of the low. This is like Soul Weaver level low. Like even your low attack DPS like Watcher Shiri, Assassin Sid, Green Charles all have higher attack than that, at least to my knowledge, to my memory rather. So I'm in a way I'm glad that she's not a DPS, or she doesn't have to be built as a DPS. But the issue with that to me is that then that makes that all Aquarius warriors, are they all gonna be supportive? There's a question mark. I don't know if that's like a long-term design flaw, but I can see that being a flaw. Outside of the attack, if you ignore that, HP at 6,149 is pretty good. Pretty decent warrior, not the highest of the high. I think that's a bit higher than Luna's LQC, so that's the Libra, but the defense is lower than them, so 613, but the speed is where it really catches up. In terms of, when we're looking at the stat line, you can also break it down to, well, how much is the stat equivalent to statistic rolls, right? So stat rolls on gear, and 121 speed is no joke. 121 speed, to give a reference point, is Cerise is 122 speed. Okay, Cerise is 122 speed. There are other heroes that outspeed that, but they don't generally categorize under the crowd control CC territory. And 121 speed on her, it just sounds pretty amazing if you just think about, again, comparing to Cerise. So if the Cerises are running at, you know, let's say anyone ranging from 290 to 310 speed, you can say that Conqueror Lilias is right there with her. The thing is that with Conqueror Lilias though, she'll bring a whole different type of mindset, and she deals with a ton of stuff currently in the game. So anyways, if you compare this to like a debuffer, because she has redirected provoke, I'm gonna, you know, bring an alignment to F10E, and she has full D-spell as well. Bring alignment to like an F10E. So F10E has like I think it's 115 speed. If I'm wrong, maybe 114, but I think it's 115 speed. The health is at like 5,500, 5,600. That's Sage Baal, that's Dizzy, that's F10E. These are Taurus mages, and the defense is slightly higher because they're mages, but their speed is at like I said, it's lower. So in terms of bulk, Conqueror Lilias has the speed, has the bulk, and she has 18% effectiveness, which is what she needs. So F10E, Sage Baal, Dizzy, and stuff like that, they have like effect resistance split. So they have 18-18, so 18 effectiveness, 18 effect resist, but they don't necessarily need it. I've seen some people run effect resist F10Es even, but Sage Baal usually now built with effect resist, just really leaning into those stats. But she has 18 innate. Now her imprint concentration is not effect resistance, It is HP. I do feel that this is a bit of a missed opportunity for her, but while understanding that she is a warrior, it would just be a bit better in terms of long-term constellation or star sign design investment for Smilegate. So in terms of what I was posing, in the future we'll most likely have other warriors that are Aquarius, but maybe they're more DPS sided, right? So the imprint concentration at 18%, maybe making them an HP scaling bruiser or something like that, will definitely be the better long-term investment for Smilegate. So I'm not too surprised to not see the effectiveness there, but it is a missed opportunity for Conqueror Lilias herself. The imprint release I think is definitely the go-to for this one though, since she has no other benefit from the HP on herself, because she doesn't have no HP scaling. Her barrier doesn't even scale on her own HP, so unless it's just for innate survival because you're missing stats, I would definitely go for the imprint release. That's presuming that you have the luxury of having imprints to begin with, but if you do, she does look like Fire Lilias in terms of the imprint alignment. So the imprint self-concentration is the 18% HP, the imprint release is attack, while though Fire Lilias is the backline and the top, being a higher attack because it's a 2 slaughter. This is AoE. So that out of the way, a new stat line, very exciting, similar to Suri. So skill 3 for honor, encourages Purloin Army, granting vigor to all allies for 2 turns, decreases buff duration of all enemies by 1 turn, and has a 75% chance, if max mola plus 3, it's 100% chance to decrease the attack for 2 turns, grants an extra turn to the caster. Alright, so let's deal with what's on screen right now. The Vigor buff, if you're not familiar with it, Emma Kawazu has it and Fire Ken has it. Fire Ken has been really out of the World Arena meta for quite a while now, and actually even in Season 1, I wouldn't say he's meta. Like, he might have been used, but he was never meta. But the Vigor buff, being able to just give to everyone, this is undispellable by the way, for 2 turns is pretty good. The Vigor buff being an undispellable buff is also stackable with attack buff and defense buff, the ones that are able to be dispelled. But regardless, this has, I think, a lot of potential. This may be, I think she is the only character at the moment, so being the newest and the only character to have an AoE buff that's an undispellable buff. I believe that's the case. If I'm wrong, definitely correct me as well. But even though you're saying that, oh well, it's not an attack buff, it's not 50%, and it's not a defense buff, right? It's still good, right? Again, you can't dispel it. There's another aspect to this that's really good, is that you could, you know, well, one, this doesn't do any damage. It doesn't hit, so it's a soft skill, so it would trigger Politis, Celine, the likes. But I mean, look at Angel of Light Angelica, how effective she is. Even with Politis and Celine to counter, she's still pretty strong. Now, arguably with ML Cowrick buffed and stuff like that, not as much. And Conqueror Lilias has a high potential to be an Angel of Light Angelica counter as well. So if you have Conqueror Lilias and ML Cowrick, did I say Kawazu? I meant Cowrick if I didn't say that. They're going to be paired up pretty well as well. So a double pick like that will basically just nullify Angel of Light Angelica draft, and also give your draft very high advantage. Angel of Light Angelica ends up being something that you can keep into the fight, and also it wouldn't really do much for the rest of the fight. I can imagine that aspect for sure. Rimuru is one of the meta characters right now. A lot of people have a hard time dealing with. Would also not benefit too much from her type of buff, and I think they honestly designed her, like I said, it's a quiet way to design her. It's not super loud, like, oh, Rimuru does the S2 and then, you know, she has a passive to like obliterate him. Like, it's not so flashy, but Rimuru can't steal this buff. So Rimuru can only steal dispellable buffs or ones without the solid icon. And this applies an attack down on him, presuming that you land it. So he may be nullified from his effectiveness, at least his turn 1. It won't be as strong, right? So that's all that stuff is good to know. Again, and it being a non-hitting skill, so it doesn't actually need to hit. So if you can't miss, you can dispel technically Remnant Violet's evasion. You can dispel, or rather reduce the turn duration of Remnant Violet's evasion. do the same thing for stealth, so guiding lights, anyone with stealth on turn 1. And then applying this is very strong against DPS because you have attack down. If your effectiveness is high enough, you could potentially even pin down the cleanser that they draft to counter your ML Lilias. So again, ML Lilias I think has a lot of potential here, even just with this skill. It's very packed. And again, the vigor being undispellable, increased attack for 30 and defense for 30 is definitely something you don't want to overlook. A lot of people are already thinking that because with her high stats, how Cerise's run, how she works rather, you might be able to introduce her as a cleave into a cleave comp. With the vigor buff, you can introduce her into a bruiser, more aggro comp, more standard, not something that just needs to outspeed and only has like one S3 that can wipe out the team, like a more standard draft. She's very solid there. You could even run her as a counter cleaver just because she has very high base speed. She has higher base speed than Flan, I believe. She has higher base speed than a lot of stuff. If she's on immunity, Assassin's City can't really stop her if your bulk is also good with your speed. So there's a lot of stuff going for her that she just deals with a lot of stuff, but then not so obvious, right? Well, I guess it's obvious, but not so like, oh, she's gonna counter this. It's like she'll counter a lot of stuff, but just because her design is very I would still consider it passive. It's still very passive. It's not very aggressive. That's how I would put it. This is part of the S3 animation. I'll probably do a separate video on it one day if I pull her or whatever, to break down the art. They're definitely doing something different with their sprite animations as well. Her walking scene before she gets to this shot, she's walking down a hallway, and I think it's requiring a different sprite sheet, not the same ones that would be used for her attack and her running one, the one like, you know, if you're trying to do labyrinth or whatever, her running one, and she has a walking cycle. Even though the walking cycle, if you do a frame by frame breakdown, is not that good. Anyways, I don't want to get too nerdy here. This is not what you were watching this for. So let me just pass this. The S3 animation, I like it. I definitely like it even better than the original S3 animation in terms of the Fire Lilias. So S2 cover distracts the enemy, decreasing combat range by 25%, up to a 70% chance, but it is actually 100% chance if you plus 6 to inflict redirect or provoke for 1 turn. So we got that back now. So we got a new debuff that F10 introduced back into a new character. Grants a barrier to the caster and the ally, except the caster of the highest health for 2 turns. Barrier strength proportional to the ally's max health. One thing I should note here though for the S3 is that it is a 6-turn cooldown with a -1 turn cooldown there. So that's 5-turn cooldown, but because he grants an extra turn, she grants an extra turn, it's a 4-turn cooldown. So it's pretty standard. The cover is has a +3 -1 turn cooldown, so it's a 3-turn cooldown on this. And the barrier aspect is pretty good. So most likely, obviously, redirect or provoke works, like as you can read there, targets the enemy with the highest max health with the basic skill at the start of turn. So they are provoked, but they have to go after the highest HP. So let's say you do this skill and it automatically applies the barrier. So you're not selecting your target, you're selecting the enemy. It's a single target skill. So it's not broken as F10, but it's still very good. So push back 25%, and then you got your 100% redirected provoke. Let's say your highest HP is Last Rider Crow or something. Last Rider Crow has a average of 27,000. Assuming max imprinted, 27,000 to 28,000 HP. You get a big fat barrier from him, so your Lilias doesn't even have to have insanely high HP to begin with. Let's say you're just chasing the speed and effectiveness and you can't manage to get the HP really high. This really helps her survival. Remember that she grants an extra turn, so that she technically is protected with a barrier for 2 turns after her quote-unquote first turn, right? So you do S3, you S2, and so she's protected with a big fat barrier. So that's pretty good. So maybe emphasis on the defense over the HP, but I definitely think that she's a more of a, try to aim for let's go for a lower bar, maybe 14,000 HP, 1400 defense kind of thing, maybe a lower defense even, but try to emphasize the defense in the EHP formula, because that barrier is going to be fat. And again, this barrier design really, it helps me think that, okay, she gets the high speed for the anti-cleave pick, or the maybe part of your cleave draft. but she's also got this barrier, she's got the vigor with the defense buff, she's got all that for a bruisery type of fight, you know, more sustaining type of fight. So again, very, very solid there, but nothing too like wow, you know. The redirected provoke here could be also really good with an F10 type of comp, so a double up of Conqueror Lilias F10. Conqueror Lilias does have more base speed than F10, just I've talked about that before, and so like she could be the opening strip and, you know, do a redirected provoke or something like that, and maybe you don't even need, depending on the situation, you don't even need to spam the F10 S3 right away. Like maybe you can keep it so she S2s more often, right? So F10 S2s more often. It just depends on the situation, but you could also go with like a double debuffer, so she does the strip, F10 does an S3. So we're talking about like FCC can't prevent that, because FCC with immunity could prevent F10 alone, but with ML Lilias, maybe you do that and you do an S1, you don't even do the S2 maybe, I don't know. Like there's a lot of ways to do that, and then F10 to follow up with an S3. It would strip the barrier, the immunity would all be gone, presuming you don't have resistance. And it's good. So redirect provoke, if you soul burn, it's 10 souls. It does provoke for 2 turns though. That's something that F10 cannot have at all. So the 2-turn redirected provoke is pretty detriment to the character that you actually provoke, right? So I think overall very solid, very solid skill set at the moment. I talked about the, yeah, so when I was talking about the Angel of Light Angelica counter, right, you can do Ash 3 and S2. So Angel of Light Angelica can't be stunned, but then you could provoke her or redirect provoke her. So, you know, by the time that she has a turn, maybe she's already dead, maybe you already dealt with her, but you could also deal with her without doing that either. So Conqueror Lilias' S1 is kneel down, attacks the enemy with the sword, triggering a dual attack from a random ally. This is a 35% raw damage if you plus 6 skill enhance. I definitely think that with the base attack at where she is, she doesn't have innate crit rate, crit damage. With the base attack at where she is, unless the modifier is really high, there's no reason to skill enhance this. So in a way, she's a low investment character. So they did, instead of plus 5ing the S1, they give her plus 6. If 5% more raw damage outside of your normal average 30%, but not necessary in my opinion. I run my Fire Lilias on pen set, and so the S1, she was designed to deal with Angel of Light Angelica. So in terms of like, she'll just draw a dual attack on the S1. So Conqueror Lilias has the same benefit there. So if you can't outspeed an Angel of Light, the dual attack is just gonna be good, right? But that's, of course, the dual attack is not just against Angel of Light. The dual attack is just good in general. If you use Lilias or Fire Lilias for that aspect already, then I don't think Conqueror Lilias would be any worse, right? Outside of saying that, well, I want a cleanser, then yeah, sure, run Fire Lilias. But outside of that, Conqueror Lilias probably, maybe, has some use in some form of PvE even, although you can't redirect provoke bosses usually, and I guess the barrier won't really help too long. Maybe the attack down and the vigor buff could be good for PvE stuff in the future, Hollow Trials and stuff like that. Well, we'll have to see, but yeah, stuff to keep in mind, of course, when you're rating the entire character. Conqueror Lilias' S1 is very bare bones. It is very refreshing for me to see a skill description that literally has one line. That's pretty refreshing. I will say this, if Conqueror Lilias ends up not being as good or as fitting in the meta as I said, I think that because she's a waifu, they may buff her really quick. However, I'm not necessarily convinced that will happen. I do think that she fits neatly into multiple playstyles. She has enough to bring to the table that I think she's just like kind of solid overall. And so if they buff her, the S1 may be something that they'll look into, since, you know, we're not really used to S1 not having any other, like, I mean, a dual attack is pretty big, I guess, but even Fire Lilias has a dual attack with HP scaling on her own, so she can do damage and stuff. With her, she doesn't, but you can consider artifacts, like I think Holiday Euphem's artifact as a stun on the S1. So if you're going like all ham on the effectiveness build with speed and stuff like that, maybe you could run that. I've heard one of my guildmates, Tatsuni, talk about using like maybe border coin on her, so you won't really benefit from the attack buff side of things, but you will benefit from the speed buff side of things. So by the time you S3, S2, that's 2 non-attack skills, so border coin is stacked twice. So that means 20% speed to benefit from there with her high base speed, and assuming you've got the gear, she might be pretty good with that. I don't think mitigation artifacts is a necessary concern here for her, again based on her speed and being able to get a barrier pretty quickly, and also the attack down. So running a Draco plate on her will be a waste because she can't really do damage unless her mods, like I said, are insane. Running Proof of Valor and stuff like that, kind of unnecessary. I think she will be a high potential kill in terms of like if you draft and the opponent lets her through, she'll be one of the high potential kills, or if you have a really flaky DPS, then they may just kill the DPS off. But she will be one of the higher priorities maybe. Just the dual attack is just you know, it's nasty, right? If you struggle with Cerise, Cerise is a crowd control character, but she doesn't really crowd control on the S3. Not the same way that Lilias does, because she can redirect provoke right away after. If you struggle with Cerise's like S1 and stuff like that, then Conqueror Lilias probably has a, you know, competition. You got some competition here. I'm thinking about other artifacts. So like El's Fist may not be meta, and it probably won't even be thought of. But El's Fist, if you're low enough HP, you do get up to 50% speed on El's Fist. That's quite a lot, right? That's higher than any speed buff in the game. But if you do have El's Fist and your HP is low, what you could, I guess, do, very niche situation, is that you can prop up the barrier so that she's kind of bulky, but her health is still low, so you trigger the max effectiveness of El's Fist. But outside of that, I think other people are saying Warhorn combined with her attack imprint, she might be very good as that kind of support. But Warhorn on ML Cowrick right now is very essential. So unless you broke up your Warhorn like me, 2 copies of it, you probably won't be doing that. So I think the border coin thing is pretty good. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, what other artifacts you could go with? You could go with stuff like, you know, Prophetic Candlestick, I guess, if you think that she's gonna be hit a lot. Just basically neutral artifacts. And like I said, like as a summary again, I do believe that they made her a warrior so that she is not too broken. If she was a mage and has access to, well, actually no, it doesn't matter. She doesn't really do much damage outside of the S1, so Abyssal Crown won't really matter there. Spirit's Breath. Spirit's Breath, right? They don't want to do another Angel of Light Angelica, right? So if she was a mage, that would happen. Spirit's Breath, Atika's Scepter. If she was a knight, mitigation would just make her too good. She's got like some kind of a Tywin ability in it without having to worry about them having immunity up the entire time. And then redirected provoke and stuff like that. So overall, if you're not impressed with her, I wouldn't blame you, but I would definitely put it this way. When I rated Fire Lilias back when she was released, it was very close. Cerise was released, I think, a couple banners after the original Lilias release. At that time, before Cerise got her buff, I didn't even think that she was that good. And when Landy came out, I was like, what the frick? Like, you know, well, Landy's a different episode, but let's compare it to Cerise then. I actually mentioned that I felt Lilias at that time, for the meta that we were facing, Lilias had a more limited hero kit compared to Cerise. So when I said that, what I meant was I felt that Lilias has a lot of flexibility. If you feel that ML Lilias is underwhelming, I would say that she's quite equivalent to me in terms of my feeling towards her, like Fire Lilias. It's not like, oh my goodness, like she's so freaking broken, but it's like exactly like Fire Lilias when Fire Lilias came out. It's like in the meta we're facing, Fire Lilias did really well. Predominantly back then it was like a big Bazaar meta. Yeah, and so this one I feel that's this similar for me. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think about her? You know, honestly, like I'm very used to reading the comments, even if it's not the same thought as mine. Let me know if this has changed your mind about her, and let me know also if you have better artifact ideas. I do plan on pulling for her. I think that she'll be very, very good, at least for me. So yeah, so I'm gonna end this here. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.